to the gorgeous, wonderful Gloucestonian James Price, former government special advisor, my favourite spad of them all. Hello, James.
I certainly had worse welcomes. Hello to you too.
Before we go for your 5 political moments of the year, did anything good happen last year?
Well, I mean, I got engaged, so I probably got to include that one. That's a pretty good part of it all. And it provided some wonderful relief in what has been, I'm afraid, a pretty doom and gloomy year in the UK, hasn't it? But as we'll talk about, I'm sure, there are lots of good things that happened around the world, just very few of them here on radio.
So shall we do it? Shall we do Pricey's top 5 events of 2024? Shouldn't call you Pricey, that's like that Katie Price woman, isn't it? Not really the same thing. Right, let's get them in then. OK, we're going to do a count backwards. Have you got them in a particular order of preference? So is it sort of, you know, mildest to most? How do you want to do this?
I think I'm going to go with what will be remembered long term around the world when aliens look back on this planet in hundreds of years. And I think we'll go for number one, probably the most wonderful, exciting thing that humanity will remember, and that really just restored, I think, huge faith in our ability as a species, was just that moment where Elon Musk's SpaceX company caught a 40-story high-sized spaceship rocket out of the sky with what I think they called Mechazilla chopstick arms. I think that was such an amazing, inspiring, wonderful moment for humanity, right? I think that will be seen as almost like when the Wright brothers plane first took off. I think that was a beautiful, wonderful moment that just proved what humanity can do and will be the start of us moving on to being this multi-planetary species. We've just got to make sure that when humanity does move out into the stars and start taking over other planets and spreading these things, that we leave the defunct, horrible ideologies of the past, like communism, here on Earth and don't infect the solar system with it.
Can't we? See, you know, I've had a little look at Mars and that rover and stuff, which is a cool thing, but it doesn't really look like... It looks a bit more boring than Dubai. You know, I'm not sure I want to go there, really.
I think it will be a staging post as we keep going off, and I think that as people need to be inspired by great things that can happen, I think that this is the start of that. And people like Musk and Jeff Bezos as well, the guy who founded Amazon and ran it so well for so long, is now also really excited into building all these things that go off into space. And in 50 years' time, when you start seeing more exciting stuff up and out there, that will eventually provide a lot of things for the rest of humanity down here. Well, and as costs come down and we all start taking holidays to the moon, I think we'll start to realize the endless potential of our species if we stop, again, going with stupid ideas from the past and embrace the potential of our future.
I love space exploration. I love innovation. I love a bit of science. And I like the word Mechazilla. Who wouldn't? I thought that actually was the name of Jeff Bezos' wife, but, you know, apparently not. But it's interesting let's see what happens with, you know, going to space versus net zero, because I'm pretty sure that those two agendas are going to clash at some point. But I have a feeling that Elon Musk will win that battle. I like that. It's brilliant. It's great. It's a strong choice. So, boom, there we go. James Price's first political moment of the year. You're next, please, sir.
I think the next one has got to be when, as others have described it, the two timelines of the world diverged. That moment where Donald Trump, at a rally in Pennsylvania, at the last possible moment, turned his head to look at a graph that he'd put up on the wall, and in so doing suffered a grazed ear rather than a successful assassination attempt. And in that moment, everybody who'd called him a coward and weak and all these sorts of things, when this bloke is bundled to the floor by the Secret Service and is hearing gunshots going off and hearing screams of people behind him, doesn't know what's happening, managed to pull himself to his feet, throw his fist up in the air and shout, "Fight, fight," like that led that great kind of inspirational victory that he went on to go and do, and inspired a lot of people like Elon Musk and lots of other people as well, not just Musk, but lots of other tech bros and more mainstream figures as time went on to come out for Trump. I think that's been a fork in the road moment. You know, if Trump had been shot there, can you imagine the kind of turmoil the United States would be in? And we all know when the United States sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. What would have happened if Trump had been killed? It would have been a disaster. It was, to me, one of the most iconic moments in all of history. I was watching television at the time when the news broke, and at first, the enormity of it didn't really strike me, because it's like someone seems to have attempted to fire shots at the president and it didn't kill him. And I thought, well, this is bad, I'm going to watch this develop. Then all of a sudden, it just happened. I just suddenly went, oh my gosh, like, that is mad.
Absolutely insane. And his response to it, when his shoe fell off and the you know, forces trying to get him out of the way and get him off the stage, and he was like insistent that he put his shoe back on. I was like, I love that man. It really was a moment that I think people went from, well, he's a bit of an oddball and I'm not sure, to, if you're our way inclined, let's say, to go, no, this is the guy who should lead the free world. That is leadership. A brilliant choice. Okay, number 3, James Price.
Well, speaking of great and radical leadership, I think the success of Argentina's libertarian, tax-cutting, regulation-killing, chainsaw-wielding new president, Javier Milei, is number 3 for me. It may not be considered as epochal as humanity reaching out to the stars, but given what Argentina, the state that it had been in, given it'd gone from being one of the wealthiest and happiest and nicest places in the world at the start of the last century, to being such an utter basket case all through self-imposed bad policy decisions, terrible inflation, terrible government corruption and spending money to buy votes, and the country just falling down and down and down. To have this bloke come along who everyone said was dangerous, and they called him far
they always do,
that
don't
before.
they? Yeah.
The things that he's managed to do has had a lot of people having to eat humble pie, eat their hats, eat their words. And it's an amazing thing for Argentina, and it will hopefully inspire us in the UK, us in sclerotic Europe and around the world, that low taxes, letting people keep more of their own money, more of their own, frankly, freedom to choose what they want to do, grow your businesses, all these sorts of things, get the government out of the way with a chainsaw if you have to, leads to prosperity for everybody.
Oh, fighting talk there. But you're right. He just basically, there's that amazing video during the campaign where he had on some sort of board all these different government departments on bits of paper pinned to this board, and he's just ripping on, getting rid of that, getting rid of that. If you just look at the size of the cabinet now, once upon a time it was good enough to have like a home secretary, a foreign secretary, someone for health and education, and that's about it. Now you've got, secretaries of, I don't know, like cat care and things. It's just like, what are you doing? We don't need all these positions. We don't need 2/3 of the civil service can jog on. I think we need to Milei-fy Britain, and I love that one. Okay, number 4, please, Price.
Right, well, I've had all the positivity so far. I think now this is the sort of, we're getting into doom and gloom, but with a positive spin perhaps on it. I think that 2024 is probably the year that everybody has realized that we can no longer hide from the pernicious negative effects across Europe and America of mass migration. I think the Trump victory proves that the sheer numbers of people who crossed over their southern border, and it was not any longer just hardworking Mexicans who, share basically a common religion and outlook on the world, and therefore actually a lot of them could assimilate quite effectively. It was people from all around the world. It was known terrorists crossing over. And of course, we've been having our own version of that, as you can see on the screen now, some people. The small boats crisis continuing, Labour not smashing the gang, so it's now a bipartisan issue here. And of course, it's a massive issue right across Europe as well. And one of the few leaders who's been successful in Europe this year is Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of...
We love her.
And she's done basically everything she possibly can and under the law to reduce immigration. Still not enough. And the ECHR is holding her back. You've got elections coming up next year in Germany, and the CDU, who were the party of Angela Merkel, a woman who, far from being an inspiration, I think I've said before, she's lucky that the bar for worst ever German leader is as high as it is. It has been totally rejected by her old party. And the very mainstream CDU, this new chap called Friedrich Merz, who's probably going to be the chancellor come February or March next year in Germany, even he is talking about Germany leaving the ECHR. So no longer is it a kind of fringe nutty issue. If the Germans can be talking about it, then surely we know there is something really wrong here. And that's some inspiration for all of us in Europe to get this problem fixed.
Oh, well, I love that. When you just look at the patterns of elections across the whole of Europe, we were the first, really, with Brexit. We were the first domino, and all the Ramonas go, we need to get back in the EU. I'm like, mate, there's not going to be an EU to get back into soon enough, because the tide has changed. And I think you're right. I think 2024 was really the moment the Overton window shifted. You noticed this, and I don't know whether sort of Musk buying X had a pivotal effect. I believe it did. But conversation around topics such as migration has totally changed. And yeah, we can no longer bury our heads in the sand and go, but it helps our GDP, it enriches our culture, they're all nuclear physicians and doctors and we need them. No, they're not. Now, very quickly, because I've got Alicia moaning for you to go to an ad break in my ear. So give me your 5th, Price.
Right, well, it's a sad one as well in some ways, because it was the Conservatives losing as catastrophically as they did, and Labour not winning with any enthusiasm whatsoever. So I think what 2024 presents itself is an opportunity for the right in the UK, the centre-right, whatever you want to call it, to find a way forward and reunify in some way, shape or form. Whether that's Kemi leading a great resurgence for the Conservatives, whether it's Farage completely cannibalising the Conservative Party, or some kind of fusion of the two, either before or after an election. There's so much enthusiasm now on the right because Labour have been so bad so fast. There is a great chance to make this a one-term Labour government with people who are actually Conservatives with a small c and want to reform things with a small r to sort this country out in a few years' time. And as one person once said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And hopefully that will be the lesson of the second half of 2024.
Well, thank you, James Price, with a big T and a big Y. It's wonderful having your company, as always. Have a very happy New Year.